Whether you're an aspiring leader, an established executive, an at-home mom, or a young person wanting to grow and learn, Marcia Martin will share actionable strategies for greater happiness, success, motivation, creativity, productivity, love, health, contribution, and fulfillment. Welcome to Talk This Way with your host, Marcia Martin. Marcia will guide you through the basics and unravel the ABCs of communication, leadership, and success by taking the wax on, wax off approach to communication mastery, ensuring that the skills you acquire will make you unstoppable. So now, please welcome the host of Talk This Way, Marcia Martin.
Hi, everyone. It's Marcia Martin here, your host of Talk This Way for Success, being live streamed from Bold Brave TV. Welcome back to our Tuesday, 5 o'clock p.m. show. Tonight, we are going to talk about manifestation. How does one create something in this universe? If you really want something and you desire it, how do you make it real? You probably have a lot of goals, whether you want to lose weight or you want to have more money or you want to travel to some place. So we're going to spend some time talking about how you actually bring something into existence. Every night or every Tuesday night at 5 p.m., this show is here, and I'm looking forward to being here with you tonight. You can always go to boldbravetv.com and check out the past episodes. So welcome to the show. Last week, I asked you to write down some goals that you wanted and to get a journal. So hopefully you've done that, but even if you haven't, you can grab a piece of paper. We need at least one goal we can work on for this evening. And I want you to think about the goals that you do want in your life, because you can apply all the things that we're going to learn to all of those goals. And some of the basics to make sure that you are most easily able to create what you want is to create a goal that's a little bit beyond where you think you can reach. I know that sounds kind of funny. It seems like it would be if you created a goal that was easy to reach, that would be easier. But it doesn't work like that. Actually, it's harder to reach something that's smaller than you. So think of something you want to create. Something you want to do, something you want to be, something you want to have, something you want to change, something you want to stop. Any goal will work for tonight. And have it be something that you see as possible, say in the next year to 3 years, but that's a little bit beyond you're actually reaching it right now, that you're going to have to stretch. You're going to have to be a different kind of person. You're going to have to grow in order to achieve it. When you set your goals in that way, they're easier to achieve than if you set something that is smaller than who you are. And make it so that it has a deadline and detail. So make it specific. Not like, I want to have a lot of money, but do you want $50,000 new income in your bank account by the end of the next 6 months? So make it specific, have a deadline. And then also look in many different domains of your life. We won't handle them all tonight, but when you're applying the information that you learned tonight, you can apply them in all of these different domains. Have something that you want as a goal in your profession or your career. Have something that you want in terms of your relationships, both family and social. Have something that you want in terms of your financial goals. Also look to see what you want spiritually and what you want personally. What passion do you have, or accomplishments that you want to accomplish yourself, or things that you want to get for yourself? And also look to see what contribution do you want to make in the world. Those are some areas that you can look at specifically and create a goal for each of them, something that is a little bit beyond you now, but that you see as possible. Now take one of those, and we're going to apply it with all the information I give you in the show tonight. So first of all, I want to just talk about a few of the goals that I've had, things that I've wanted, and what's happened, because I want to make a point about all of these. So let me tell you a few stories. When I was in college, and I'm a baby boomer, so I was a hippie, and we lived in what was called communes. A lot of people would get a house together, and we would share the kitchen and the living room, and then we would each have our own bedrooms. And it was a time when everybody was talking about love and giving and kindness. And I remember I used to bring guests home to the house. My roommates always wanted to kill me, actually. I would always find somebody out in the universe, whether I was walking in the park or I was at school or I was at a pub. I would find someone that needed a place to stay. And I would always say, oh, come on home to our house. And I would bring them home. And I brought this young man home, and he slept on the couch that night, and he left in the morning to hitchhike off to wherever he was going. And that afternoon, we were, all of my roommates, in this discussion because we had done this silly thing in college. We had given our house to one of the professors who was teaching a class in art. And he had a naked model. And he brought the naked model to our house. And somehow, I'm not sure what happened, but our landlord found out that we had a naked person in the house and a bunch of people making drawings, and decided that we couldn't live there anymore. And that afternoon, we were trying to figure out where we were going to get the money to be able to put on a down payment, a deposit for the house that we really wanted, that we had found. And all of my roommates were kind of arguing with me. We don't have enough money. And I kept saying, just see it. Just know it's there. It will come, I promise you. And they were making fun of me and saying, oh, Miss Positive, Pollyanna, you always talk like that. When suddenly the doorbell rang. And I went to the door to see who was there. And at the door was this young man that I had brought home the night before. And he was standing in front of me. And I said, why are you here? I thought you left this morning. You were hitchhiking off. And he said, I've been down on the freeway for the longest time and I couldn't find a ride. And I know you're going to think this is silly, but this is what he actually said. He said, I just figured there must be something here I needed to know about because for some reason I wasn't getting a ride. And I, in my hippie kind of Pollyanna way, I said to him, oh, you must be picking up our vibrations. We're having trouble right now, and we need to come up with some money to get a house that we want to rent. And I'm sure you just felt the vibes. And he looked at me, kid you not, and he said, how much do you need? And I said, oh, we need $500. And he took the backpack off of his back and put it down on the floor in front of me at the door. And he counted out $500 in cash and he gave it to me. And he said, I'm sure I'll get my ride now. And he gave me a hug and he left. And here I was with $500 in cash going back into the dining room. And I said to all of my roommates, it came. I have so many stories like that. I kid you not. I had a job at the Pacific Coast Stock Exchange. I worked for the head of the Pacific Coast Stock Exchange. I had no experience in stocks or finance or in anything to do with the Pacific Coast Stock Exchange. But for some reason, when I landed in San Francisco, the woman that was the recruiter sent me off on an interview to interview for the assistant to the head of the Pacific Coast Stock Exchange. I walked in and I looked around and I just knew this was my job. No doubt about it in my mind. This was my job. It didn't matter I didn't have any experience. I just felt this was me. And I was so excited and I went through the interview and I came home and the phone rang and it was the recruiter. And she said, I'm so sorry, Marcia. She said, I never should have sent you to that job. You didn't have any experience. It's really my fault. I really apologize. But he's hired someone else. And I remember how disappointed I was, and I remember hanging up the phone, and I still had my hand on the phone. And I don't even know where it came from. Just this loud kind of voice from inside of me couldn't not get out. And I looked up anywhere and I said, "That's my job." And the phone rang while I still had my hand on it. And I picked up the phone and I said, "Hello?" And it was the recruiter. And she was almost stuttering. And she said, I don't even know how to tell you this, Marcia. For some reason, he just called me back and he's decided to have you instead of the other person that he had decided on, and you're to report to work tomorrow morning. So the point I want to make while I'm sharing these stories, and like I said, I have so many of these stories. I have so many of these stories. This isn't one story or two stories. I have hundreds of these stories. And the point I want to make is creating something in the universe is 80% an inner game and 20% strategy and action. However, here's the deal. When we look to see what we want, most people live in a paradigm or the assumption in the background. That's what a paradigm is. It's the assumptions in the background of who you are. It's where you come from. It's your mindset. It's your beliefs. And where most people come from is they think they have to have something first and then do something before they can be anything. So if I said to myself, I want to be a ballerina, and I've asked this question to thousands of people in my many, many, many hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of workshops. What needs to happen if I want to be a ballerina? And 100% of the time, they will start telling me what I need to have and what I need to do. Now, language is an interesting thing because language exists in two ways. There's what you say, and then there's what you don't say that has to be so for you to say what you said. In other words, there's the thing you hear in language, there's words and language itself, but in order to say what you say, it comes from the assumption that you have about how it all works. So, for example, let me explain this. If you were in the days of Columbus and he was a relative and he got this great idea, he's going to go off and discover the Americas. And he's got a big boat and a ship, and he's talked a bunch of people into going with him. And say you're his mom or you're his sister or someone who really loves him. I promise you, in that time, you would not go down to the dock and say, "Bon voyage, have a great trip." You couldn't say that because of the paradigm, the assumption at that time in the universe. And the assumption at that time in the universe was that the world was flat. And not only was it flat, there's a big drop-off. And not only is there a big drop-off, there's a horrible monster at the bottom that's going to eat you when you fall off of it. So the assumption, the mindset could not speak, "Bon voyage, have a great trip." So when I ask a question to people about how I would be a ballerina, and they tell me everything I have to have and what I have to do, then I know the paradigm that they operate from is first you have to have something, then you have to do something before you can be something. And that's the paradigm that most of us live in. So for ballerinas, if you were living in that paradigm, you would think you have to go out and get a teacher and maybe a costume, and you might have to have money, and then you would have to practice dance. And if you had that and did that, you could be a ballerina. Well, we're going to take a commercial break. When we come back, I'm going to tell you how it really works, because it doesn't work like that. This is Marcia Martin. I'm your host of Talk This Way for Success, being live streamed by Bold Brave TV. See you after the break.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them. Rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies. Find settings that allow them to be the most productive and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Welcome back, everyone. This is Marcia Martin. I'm your host of Talk This Way for Success, being live streamed by Bold Brave TV. Okay, we're just talking about this paradigm that most people live in, which says that they think the way it works is first you have to have something, whether it's money or whether it's a resource or whether it's a circumstance or whether it's a feeling. Then you will do something, and people think that's how it works to create something real in the universe, to be something or to accomplish bringing something into existence so that it is being. But it works exactly the opposite. There are three worlds. There's the world that we live in, we call the world of being. And the world of being is an invisible world. Then there's the world of action, which is the world of doing. And then there's the world we live in where we have things that exist and show up. We call that reality, those things we have. So the world of being, the world of doing or action, and the world of having. If we want to have something in the world, any kind of result that we want to bring into existence, whether it's to have an extra $100,000 in the bank, or if it's to have a skill set where you learn a new language, or if it's to have a baby, or if it's to have a new house or a new car. If you want to bring some new event or thing into existence, there's a process or a law, the way that creativity and manifestation happen. And even though most of us think that the way it works is you have something first, then you do something, then you bring something into existence, or you be it, or it bees, it's exactly the opposite. Everything has to exist in the invisible world, the world of being, first, before it can exist in the world of reality. So for me, when I needed $500 for the rent, for the deposit for the new house, I kept trying to tell my college mates, we have to believe it's already here. Because I knew this, that it has to be existing in the invisible world first. But most people don't know that. And so when they start to look at how they're going to create something, they will look at what they have to have first. So if I say, we want to be the best organization, company, team in the world, or we want to create 50% additional sales by the end of the year and increase our profit by 20%. Or if I say, I want to lose weight and go from this amount to this amount within this period of time. Each of those things I'm bringing into existence. And how the law works is this. Whatever you are being, human beings are congruent. So action, which is language and action, the world of doing, has to line up with what we're being, with our mindset, with our assumption, with our belief. It has to exist in the world of being, the invisible world, first. Now, how does it exist in the invisible world? Well, it exists as a dream or a vision or a visualization or a feeling, but it's real that way in the invisible world. It's not that it's not real, it's real. It's just real the way invisible things are real. It's real as an imagination. It's real as a feeling. It's real as a vision. But it has to start there first. And then we're congruent. Just like when Christopher Columbus's mother walks down to the dock, she doesn't say, honey, have a great trip. Not then. She says, honey, please don't go. Because that language is congruent with her assumption that the universe is flat and there's a drop-off and a big monster that's going to eat her son. So being a congruent being, we start with what we're being or imagining first, and then automatically our actions and our language will line up with that. I don't know if you saw that, but I just threw my cat off the table. You'll get to know my cats, I'm sure, as we go through these programs. So everything lines up because we're congruent. So we have to start with what we're being. Now, here's another little caveat or trick. So the first trick kind of is, okay, it's be, do, have, not have, do, be. The way the universe works is if you want to bring something into existence, you have to be it first in the invisible world. It has to exist there first. And then your actions and your language will line up with that. And as you produce those kinds of actions and language, you will automatically produce the thing that exists in the invisible world. Eventually, it will exist in the real world, and the only variable is time. But here's the thing. When we're creating what we want, that's what we're being. In other words, we're being wanting something. Now think about it. If the world of have lines up and is exactly a reflection of the world of be, and if you're wanting something in the world of being, then what you're going to have is wanting it. Because when you're wanting something, you also don't have it at the same time. And if the being is going to line up with what you're going to have, you have to be already having it in order for it to exist as a reality in the universe. You can't be being wanting it, because wanting it is not having it. And that's what you'll produce in the universe. And that looks like struggle. That's what struggle is. It's struggling to have something you don't have. Well, that's exactly what wanting is. It's struggling to have something that you don't have. So that's what you'll have in the real world if that's what you're being in the invisible world. So we have to learn how to trick our mind so we can create in the invisible world the dream of it already has happened, rather than the dream of wanting it. So I'm going to give you some steps, and I want you to use one of your goals now. And the first step is this. First, you say what you want. And when you want something, Remember, you don't have it. So that's what you're being. You're being not having it. So we've got to trick the mind into somehow changing that vision and that dream from not having it to already having it. So the first step is you say what you want. I want whatever it is, and then say it with detail. Make sure that it's specific, and make sure you have a deadline. Make sure that there's a date by when you're going to have it be existing. Make sure it's a little bit beyond where you are right now, so you have to stretch, and make sure that you see it's possible, even though you don't see it possible right now. You can see it possible in, say, 1 to 3 years. So you say, or you write down what you want. The next step is I want you to pretend that all of a sudden time goes away and you're standing in the future and you have it. You actually have it. In your pretend mind, you have it. So you just pretend it's happened. So if you wanted a house, a new house, I want you to pretend some time has gone by and you've achieved it, and now you're standing in the future, and in the future you already have what you said you wanted. And then what I want you to do, and this is really important, I want you to speak and describe it as if you already have it. And I want you to do that out loud. I want you to talk about the house, for example, if what you want is a house, as if you bought a house and you have a house and you're living in the house. And then I want you to describe it, and I want you to describe it in detail. Specifically, what color are the carpets? Does it have draperies? Is there a garden? What kind of fixtures are in the bathroom? What food is in the kitchen? How does the stairway turn? How many bedrooms? Which bedroom is yours? What do you have as furnishings in that bedroom? I want you to just keep talking and talking and talking and talking and describe it until you start feeling excited, that you start feeling that you have a new house. And I want you to activate those feelings by describing something that you now have because you're standing in the future. And I want you to say that description out loud for at least 5 minutes, nonstop. And just keep saying what color the wallpaper is, and what kind of a light fixture there is, and how many pets are in the house, and what is the length of the dining room table, and when did you get the carpet, and just keep describing it. Now, here's something very interesting. You'll probably have a little bit of trouble in the beginning because this is something you have to practice. I don't know why this is. Well, I kind of do know why, but I'm going to describe it to you. When I ask somebody what happened in the past, they're willing to describe it. So if I said to somebody, hey, tell me about a relationship you had in the past that didn't go well, I promise you that person could go on ad nauseum talking about that person. They would know where the freckle was on their nose. They would know what they wore when they first met them. They would know the date that they met their mother or their father. They would know what they did on their first date. They would know the pattern of the shirt that the person wore. They would just be able to keep talking and talking and talking and talking and talking about the past. And they would have no resistance to describing it. But when I ask the same person, describe to me a relationship you would like to create for yourself in the future, it gets very silent. People say things like, well, I want it to be a good relationship. I want him to be kind, handsome. A couple of words come out, but people have a problem describing the future. So I want you to think about this in terms of what is a future anyway, and what is a past? Why would you have trouble describing the future, but you can talk about the past ad nauseum? What's the difference between the two? Do you really think that if you back up really fast, you're going to run into your past and it's back there somewhere, real? Or do you really think that you're going to, if you run really fast into the future, you run really fast, you can run into your future? It's down the street and around the corner by the 7-Eleven? Because that's how we talk about it. That's how we speak. That's how we think. We say the past is back there and the future is out there, as if it's in front of us and the past is in back of us. And a lot of times when we speak about the future, we start getting really upset. So we must think the future is really out there in some form, or why would we be upset about it? I want you to think about that, because I'm going to explain what a future is and how it exists, and what a past is and how it exists. And it's going to blow your mind. And we're going to do that after the break. This is Marcia Martin. I'm your host of Talk This Way for Success, being live streamed by Bold Brave TV. See you after the break.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality? But it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating. Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like, it was almost instant. Like, I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. It feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic on the BBM Global Network, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Hey, back from the break. This is Marcia Martin, your host of Talk This Way for Success, and this is being live streamed by Bold Brave TV. Okay, have you been thinking about this? How does a future exist? I bet you haven't even thought about that before. So when you listen to people talk about the future, they talk as if it's out there in front of them and it's really there. Otherwise, they could never be upset about the future. They think it's real, somewhere in front of them. I want you to understand how a future exists. A future exists as a possibility. That's how a future exists. That's what a future is. It's a possibility. A possibility doesn't exist like a pen. It's not real like a pen is real, but it's real like a possibility is real. A possibility lives in the world of being. It lives in the invisible world, but it's still real. And that's how a future exists. A future is a possibility. That's how it exists. Okay, now think about this. When does a future exist? Well, I hope you said now, because there's only one time zone that you live in. And when a possibility exists, it's now that it exists. A future exists as a possibility now. In every moment of now, a future exists as a possibility. Here's the real big kind of mystery. Where? Where is it? When it shows up, where is it? What's happening when it comes into existence? Where is it located when it comes into existence? Where is it when it's just existing? Like it's not there and now it's there. Where does that happen? Well, I want you to know it's in language. When you speak, when you think, when you write, that's what causes a future to exist. It's not here as a possibility until you bring it into existence through language. You speak things into existence, first as a possibility, and then as possibilities get momentum and you add evidence and you make them real because you're making them right with agreement, pretty soon they exist in the real world also. But all possibilities, all futures start off in the world of being as a dream when you think it, when you speak it in language. That's when it comes into existence. If I say to you, hey, would you like to have coffee next Thursday at 4:00 with me? That possibility of a future didn't exist until I said it. So the first thing I want you to get is to beware of what you're saying, because you're bringing futures, possibilities into existence. When you say it's never going to work out, you just created a future because you just created a possibility. And that's how possibilities are created, through your declaring them so. You create a possibility in language by declaring them. You speak it. You bring it into existence through your word. So actually, you're living today in what you spoke last year. And think about where you're going to be living in the future by what you're saying today. If you're saying things like, I always lose, I'm never good enough, I can't get this done, I don't have any confidence, those are possibilities you're actually bringing into existence, and how a future exists as a possibility. Now, when it exists really, when you get some evidence and agreement around it, then you have it in the real world because of agreement. And all things that we agree upon started off as a possibility. So you're designing your future right now. You're speaking into existence the thing that you're creating as your future. Be careful what you say. Now let's look at a past. How does a past exist? Well, it exists as a memory. Just instead of a possibility as a future exists, it's a memory. It's also in the world of invisibility. It lives in the world of being as a memory. It's a memory. You dream it up. You cause it to exist by thinking it. That's where it comes into existence, when you think it. The past isn't behind you. If you go really fast, you're not going to run into it if you're going backwards. In fact, think about it. If you have any brothers and sisters and you talk about the past, I'm sure you realize everybody has a different past than everybody else. Even if you were there together, you talk about the past as if it was different than the other person said. So I don't know what happened really in the past. Something happened, but I know how you hold the past. You hold the past, how it exists, is as a memory. And when that memory occurs is now, because this is the only time zone you can be in. Sorry. And when it exists, where it is when you say it. It exists in language. And for some reason, we're willing to speak the past, even though the past is the same as the future, except one's a memory and one's a possibility. but they both exist now in language. In other words, you bring them into existence through speaking them. And whatever happened back there isn't what you remember. I mean, even if you've ever been on a jury trial, you know, you go into the back of the room with 12 jurors. They just watched the same thing 2 minutes ago, and they all have a different idea of what happened. So our memories are different, but that's how our past exists, because there's no thing back behind you that's real. There's something that happened sometime, but how it exists for you now is as a memory. But for some reason, we're willing to speak the past. There's no reservation. Now, I have my ideas about this. I kind of think that, well, maybe we don't want to speak the future because we aren't willing to take responsibility for creating a design. Maybe we don't think it's that we're worthy of creating something wonderful. Or maybe we think if we say something terrible, we'll then be guilty for creating that. I don't know. But we sure don't speak the future. And we're sure willing to speak the past with detail. But to create something real, we have to be able to speak it. So when you're standing in the future about something that you want, and now pretending that you have it, you have to be willing to speak it, because that's how you create it real as a possibility. It's in language. And in addition, your language will elicit a feeling. And your feelings and passion are what ignite the process of creation. Your desire, your passion, your excitement. It's not just specificity of being specific and detailed. It's the feeling that you have. Now I'm going to tell you another story that happened to me. I had the most beautiful, amazing cat, Nipper. And she was 19 years old. She lived till she was 20. She was almost 20, and she went missing in the mountains of Aspen, where I lived. And in the mountains of Aspen, if you've ever lived in the mountains of Aspen, you know there are many, many horrific animals out there that love to eat cats. There's foxes and coyotes and bears and all sorts of things. And she was missing for 9 days. And every day I would go out and put a poster, and I knocked on so many doors, and I went to every vet, and I went to every police station, and I went to every house around where I lived, and I wrote ads in the paper, and for 9 nights and 10 days, she was missing. And I finally came to the realization that my Nipper was gone. And so I took a candle and some flowers, and I went out on the porch in front of the mountains and the trees, and I decided to do a little ceremony for her and wish her well and kind of send her off. And I started to light the candle, and I could not light it. I could not get that she was gone in my mind. I couldn't even accept it. I just couldn't see it. I couldn't feel it. I couldn't be with it. It wasn't so for me, even though I knew it had to be so, because all the circumstances would say that after 9 days or 9 nights and 10 days in the Aspen Mountains, that a cat would probably be dead. And I remember just saying to myself, it can't be. I'm not lighting this candle. And I walked back in the house, and about 20 minutes later, the phone rang. And there was this little old man, and later I found out he was 93 years old. And he said, "Is this Nipper's family?" He had the most beautiful old voice. And I said, yes, this is Nipper's family. He says, "I think I have her on my deck." And he'd seen some poster I'd put up. And I raced up to his house, which was all of 3 miles away. And there, sitting on the deck, was Miss Nipper. She'd lost 10 pounds. She looked terrible, but she was alive. And I'm saying to you that that's exactly how it happens in the creative process, that first it has to exist in the invisible world. And whatever you're creating in the invisible world will eventually show up in the world of reality. The only variable is time. But it will show up the way that you're holding it in the invisible world. And if what you're holding in the invisible world is you want something, you're also saying you don't have it. So what you're holding is not having it. So you must train yourself to be able to stand in the future and create the vision as if it's already happened, and be able to speak it with specifics and passion. So you're going to have to speak it. Now I'm going to tell you there's another step to this process. It doesn't work without this step. So as soon as we get back from the break, I'm going to bring this all together. So this is Marsha Martin. I'm your host here at Talk This Way for Success, being live streamed by Bold Brave TV. See you right after the break.
Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays, 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation.
Hi, welcome back. This is Marsha Martin, your host of Talk This Way for Success, being live streamed by Bold Brave TV. Okay, the last step of this little process of tricking your mind to be able to hold in the world of being a vision as if it was already happened. So the first step is you get something that you want, a little stretch, a little bit beyond where you are now, but something you can see as possible. And you say to yourself, this is what I want, and identify it to yourself. Be specific of when you want to create it, by when. Then I want you to pretend it happened. You bought the house, you lost the weight, you got the man, whatever it was that you said that you wanted has already happened. And that's called standing in the future. You're standing in the future, looking back at what was now, and it's now the past for you, and you're already achieved the thing you say you wanted. And I want you to say out loud for 5 or 10 minutes in detail with lots of passion, describe the situation the way it is now. Because we want you to be able to hold that as a memory with a feeling. That's what is activating the thing to be created and pop it into reality. And then, once you've done that, this is the last step. that the mind needs. The mind needs a connector between the past and the future. So you have to come up with a reason. You have to come up with an explanation. You have to create a story of how it happened. Now, let me explain this to you. It doesn't matter if the way you described what it is you're creating is exactly the way that it ends up being in reality. And it doesn't matter if the way that you got it is the explanation that you made up. Why we do this exercise is to trick your mind, or to give you a way to be able to create a vision that is already created as if it's so, because that's what has to be in the invisible world. You have to create it the way that you want it to be real in the world. You can't say you want it. It can't be something you're trying to get to, because if you're trying to get to it or you want it, you're saying you don't have it. And that's what you're being in the invisible world, is not having. And that's what you'll have in the real world. So you have to trick yourself and your mind to hold a vision. I already am that. I already have that. I'm already being that. You want to hold that in the invisible world. And you need an explanation for the mind. The mind is reasonable. It needs a story. So make up a story. Just make up any story. Now, lots of times when you start operating your life this way, you will find things happen a lot easier than you ever thought they could. I have so many stories of if I'd even thought of it could have happened that way, even I couldn't be that creative. So don't worry about being right about your story. It's just for the mind. It's just for having the vision. I have a friend who is a new senior executive. She's an owner now of a big company, and she is being asked to do things she's never been asked to do, and she's being asked to make decisions she's never been asked to make, and she's a little uncertain of herself. And she said to me once, she said, I have to have more confidence before I can be a senior executive. So just like I told you in the beginning of this show, that's how people think it is. First they have to have something, then they have to do something, then they can be something, when it's the other way around. And confidence isn't something you have. Confidence is something you be. And you can be confident at any time that you choose to be confident. And if you're being confident, then what you will have is the agreement from the world that you're operating like a senior executive. You're not going to have being a senior executive. You're going to have people that agree that you are a senior executive, which makes you being a senior executive. So start really thinking about this. How do you need to be first? Not what do you need to have? Not what do you need to do? 80% of the game is an inner game. 80%. 20% is action and strategy. Stop looking at what action you need to take and strategy you need to have. Start looking at what is it you need to be. Tara Lipinski was one of the greatest Olympic champion skaters of all time. If you ever get a chance to Google her skate, I'm sure it's out there. It's breathtaking. The whole world came to a standing ovation after that skate. Now, her mother has a story that she tells about Tara when she was around 4 years old, and her mother walked into the living room and saw Tara standing on a bench in front of the TV watching the Olympics, very straight. And her mother said, Tara, what are you doing? And Tara said, I'm receiving my gold medal in skating. At that time, she didn't own a skate. She didn't have a skating teacher, and her mom didn't even know she wanted to skate. But it was a dream in her that she was already being a gold medal winner. And then many years later, guess what? That vision that she created in the world of being, the invisible world, turned into a reality, and she had the agreement that she was a gold medal champion. But she was a gold medal champion before she ever got the medal. She was being that. And that's how we bring things into existence. So we need to learn about this inner world. There's a thing, I'm sure you've heard of it, it's called meditation. Some people call it contemplation. Some people call it being still. Some people say, I never meditate, I can't be still. We need to get you to the point, if we're going to have you catapult yourself to greatness, where you can create and understand how to maneuver your inner world, because it's 80% of the game. So next week, I'm going to give you some exercises and teach you some things about how you get your mind to be still, how you calm your inner self, and how you get in touch with your inner power. I've really enjoyed being with you. I look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you for attending. Thank you for being a person who wants to grow and develop themselves and contribute to the world. This is Marsha Martin, your host of Talk This Way for Success, being live streamed by Bold Brave TV. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful week, everybody. See you next week.
This has been Talk This Way with Marsha Martin. Tune in each week and discover that the effectiveness of your communication dictates the quality of your relationships, the profits of your business, the results you produce, and your overall success in life. Tuesdays, 5 p.m. Eastern, right here on the Bold Brave TV